some of them will lose their employment. And of course, we have already covered that for you in terms of the reorganization of UON. But then we go to our top story, the search for the 4 new independent electoral and boundaries commissioners, which continues, and prospective candidates are actually appearing. The first candidate is actually appearing before the IEBC selection panel convening at the KHRC in Nairobi. The panel is chaired by Dr. Elizabeth Muli. The electoral body is hoping to get suitable candidates to replace 4 commissioners who resigned after the disputed 2017 repeat presidential election. And the filling of these vacancies comes ahead of a possible referendum in next year's general elections. We are actually crossing over live to the KICC, where the first candidate has already taken the hot seat. So we cross over live and listen in.
Chosen a certain career path, or you have chosen a subject that you want to study, my advice is that you have to be excellent. You have to aspire to be the best person in that space where you are. It's important for you to be outgoing, to volunteer for different situations that might arise as a result of you being a student. So if you are in a student space, to engage in as many activities as possible that can expose you to different environments. Because my belief is that currently, it's not possible to tell a young person, for example, I would not tell my law students that because you have studied law, you must become a lawyer. You must practice the law. So my view and my advice to a student or to my students usually is that the law just opens doors. Education is there so that you can equip yourself with certain skills that enable you to be more versatile in the market, but also to look at education as something that enables you to, in a sense, exploit your creativity and to be innovative. So if, as a young person, you are passionate about music, you are passionate about writing, but you're studying law, there's absolutely no reason why you should not develop your passion, why you should not engage in something that gives you a lot of satisfaction. So considering that studying law is just an avenue to make you more knowledgeable, to make you more versatile. So that is what I would advise my students. But excellence and being a person of integrity, being a person who is committed, are things that will endear you to an employer, will endear you to your clients if you decide that you want to go into business or you want to go into your own private work. So just developing your person as an individual is so important beyond education.
Thank you, Madam. So you'll agree that, and what I hear from you, Madam, that degrees and qualifications are only important as a launching pads, and not landing sites. Your learning happens as your life happens.
Yeah.
Right? And Madam, maybe you could tell us now, a law student takes how long to complete to come to the degree at the place where now they can exercise or they can use their degrees to engage into employment?
How long?
How long? How long
I'm sorry, I had a knee surgery, so I may not hear you very well. So
I will be more than happy to repeat myself.
Yes.
I'm saying, so we are on the same level that degrees and qualifications are only important as a launching pad, right? Not landing sites. Meaning we could use your education degrees to launch your ambition, right? And your learning, your learning happens as your life happens simultaneously. You're doing your learning, but the actual learning in real life goes with your life, right? Now, Here we are, we've got a lot of students, you know, many of us when we were young, we wanted to be lawyers like you, engineers and that. Sometimes I trained as an accountant, I ended up in business, right? When can that be dictated or communicated to the students? Here we are, you've got a student who wants to come and, you know, enroll as a lawyer. How many years does it take? What I'm trying
How
to
many
arrive...
years does it take?
Yes.
Yes.
To qualify, to graduate.
To qualify to be a lawyer?
Yes.
So to be a lawyer, you have to do the 4 years at the university. So that is, you get your bachelor's degree. And then you go to the Kenya School of Law, where you do practical, where you're taught, you know, the trade of being an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. You also do an attachment with an experienced lawyer, a lawyer who is qualified. And then after that, if you pass your exams at the law school, you are admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Once you're admitted as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, you can apply to work in private practice, you can work in the government sector, but it is also possible for one to qualify with a bachelor's degree and do something else. So the law school is only to qualify you as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. So it's possible to do things with your Bachelor of Law degree.
So we are saying, Madam, that after 4 years,
Yes.
is that when the person is maybe free to do something else? So
Yes.
is there any mechanism as advisors, as lecturers, as policymakers in that you don't let the students spend the 4 years?
That's
Because they can do something else. So you could study law, but of course they follow their passion.
Yes.
Now I realized that after 2 years that my passion is not this. I want to get into business.
Yes.
What happens to that student in the 2 years he spent?
Actually, there's no legal mechanism or framework or policy. I think, and that is why it's the responsibility of the lecturers and the people around the student to advise the student. So then the student, if they display, you know, an interest in another area where they are more passionate about, then it's about guidance and mentoring of that student. And guidance and mentoring happens at the university, but it also happens outside the university. But the university makes available forums for students to interact with different, you know, people from different business, from organizations. So those are the opportunities that the university can give to students to be able to develop themselves and to identify the kind of career paths they would want to have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. All the
Abdallah.
best.
Thank
you,
you.
Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Abdallah. I'll now request Mr. Gideon Solonka to ask you a few questions.
Yes, Madam Sambiri. Let me begin with a very simple one. What are the 4 qualifications for nomination as a presidential candidate? And Article 137(1).
So you have to be in compliance with Article 10 of the Article 73 of the Constitution. So in compliance with that.
That's number 1 for you. That is.
There's also citizenship. People can apply to be citizens of Kenya.
All right. All right, so that is Florence Jaoko, a former commissioner of the Kenya Human Rights Commission. She's one of the candidates who has been shortlisted for that interview, and she's the first candidate appearing before the commissioner this morning to actually convince the selection panel as to why she needs to be given that job as one of the commissioners that the selection panel is looking for, because the selection panel is looking for only 4 candidates to take the 4 vacancies that were left. And she was just giving, the panel answers as to, what exactly one needs to have in terms of being nominated for a presidential seat before we got that technical hitch from the KICC, which definitely our team is also working on our side, just to ensure that we continue giving you that live coverage of that selection panel. She was also telling the commissioners in terms of, when one wants to become a lawyer. And so I understand her mic is okay now, so we cruise over back live to the KICC and continue to listen to the interview process.
Record, so you shouldn't have been convicted of a criminal offense with the 6 months conviction.
You through? You need to look at that Article 137 again.
Yeah.
Yes. What about disqualifications?
Disqualifications?
Yeah.
So you
under Article 137 too?
You'd be disqualified if you have that conviction, a conviction, if you are of unsound mind. Yeah, if you're not a citizen of Kenya, obviously you'll be disqualified. Which is the other one? If you're not in compliance with the Article 6 of the Constitution.
Again, I request you to look at Article 137(2). Now, let's go to the real issue here. Result management was a serious point of contention in the 2017 presidential election. And you remember the Supreme Court presidential petition number 21, that it was one of the main issues. Kindly address us on how presidential results are processed and transmitted from the polling station to the National Tallying Center.
Okay, so the results, the first point is at the polling station, and then from the polling station, you have them go to the tallying centers at the constituency level, and from there, they go directly to the National Tallying Center. And the requirement, I believe that IEBC has certain forms that they use for collecting the results at the polling station, where the results are tallied and collated, and these forms are signed that then make up the constituency results. Then when they are taken to the National Tallying Center, it is the National Tallying Center that has the responsibility of consolidating all these results that have come at the national level. My understanding is that this case, the minor KIA case, which established that the results that is brought to the national level must be at the polling station. That first polling station is the one that constitutes what the National Tallying Center does, and the National Returning Officer has no role in correcting or rectifying any errors that might be in the results that are taken to the National Tallying Center.
Thank you. What are these forms you've alluded to?
I think it's 34A, 34B, and 34C.
Okay, who signs 34A? And where is that done?
34 at the returning office at the constituency, at the polling station,
Yeah.
and then the returning officer at the constituency level.
So you're saying that 4A is signed by a returning officer?
Yes, it's the returning officer at that level,
Which level?
the polling station level.
You're sure of that?
Yes, the must, yeah, because that is the person who is responsible for those results, and they actually announce the results there.
Then from 34A, what happens?
Then it goes to the constituency.
Yep.
Then from the constituency, it goes to the National Tallying Center.
Okay. Now, we've had IEBC complain of insufficient network to transmit presidential results from the polling station to the National Tallying Center. Okay?
Yes.
What proposals have they given to deal with that problem?
So the problem they have is because of the electronic transmission
Yes.
of the results, and the problems the challenges they've had is the failure of network, and their argument is that for this to be done seamlessly, you need 3GB networks in all the polling stations in the country to be able to do that. So one of the things that they've recommended, and I think they've been working on, is to work with the service providers to ensure that there is network that can be able to transmit the results. But there are also areas that have no network at all. That means that those results have to be moved to an area that has network for them to be transmitted. When that fails totally, then those officers are actually forced to carry the physical ballots to the National Tallying Center. So that's, I think that has been the challenge for IEBC in terms of just those logistical arrangements.
Thank you. Let's go to another issue, and this is on voter suppression. This is a real threat to the people's right to free and fair elections, and it happens throughout an electoral cycle. What is your understanding of voter suppression?
So voter suppression is where you make it difficult for voters to register and also to vote. So I believe that the Constitution actually provides that in terms of registration of voters, we should not have administrative measures that make it challenging for voters to register. So this could happen in terms of voter registration. It could happen where, and this, from the case study that you gave us, for example, there were the 2 million youth who do not have identity cards. When the youth do not have identity cards, it means that they cannot vote, they cannot register as voters. That is an aspect of voter suppression, because those voters, eligible voters, are not able to vote. The requirement that you can only register with a national identity card can be a problem, because some of those young people, they have maybe birth certificates that could be used or other alternatives. So it would, the country will have to think of, to avoid that, you need to have maybe alternative documentation. So there are countries where they allow people to use multiple registration information. Then during voting, it is also possible to suppress voters when there's violence, when there's intimidation, and this is beyond the electoral management body. So this is an external process that suppresses voters. On the other hand, the electoral management body can also be accused of voter suppression, if they do not allocate, accessible voting or polling stations, then voters who are unable to access polling stations, either because of distance or because they are persons with disabilities and there's no proper arrangement for them as persons with disabilities, maybe persons with minority languages. So that would suppress them because it would automatically mean that either they avoid going to vote or when they go to vote, they encounter enormous problems.
Thank you so much. Now, lastly, security is a major concern among us employees of IEBC and the electorate during an electioneering period. And you recall that during the last elections, there were incidences of insecurity and physical harm to IEBC employees and voters and even children, citizens of this country. Now, from your CV, I've seen that you are a member of the Task Force on Police Reforms in Kenya and Police Reforms Implementation Committee between 2009 and 2012. What measures can IEBC put in place to address these concerns of insecurity? Just briefly.
Okay, so within the law allows for IEBC to work closely with the national police. Actually, under the law, any officers who are seconded to the IEBC during elections are under their direct control. So I think that there's need for, I don't know if there's need for better clarity because I'm not an insider in IEBC, but how they exercise that control over their officers who are seconded to IEBC during an electoral process. But security also means it's not just those officers who are seconded to IEBC. The general security that the National Police Service still has to maintain during an election period means that IEBC has to have serious discussions with the National Police Service to preempt any possible security lapses. So IEBC must always have this scenario building processes where they can predict where is insecurity most likely to happen and then put in place mechanisms. In addition to actually educating the public about having a peaceful election and ensuring that the public themselves do not engage in violence or intimidation that then escalates security situations.
Thank you.
That is Florence Jaoko, a former Kenya Human Rights Commission, appearing before that selection panel, just giving a crucial information to the selection panel, indicating that there is need also for the electoral body to allow Kenyans, voters, to use other documents, just apart from the identification card on the day for voting, but they should also be allowed to use their birth certificate just in case they don't have, their ID. And the last one, she was talking about voter suppression. That is something that IEBC has to deal with any time elections are being conducted in the country, just to take care of persons with a disability and also the minority group so that their voices can be heard when it comes to voting during the general election. We'll continue that live coverage for you, but then another commercial break here on KTN News Center. We'll be right back with more news making the headlines, including that interview.